how do you figure out, who are the people to include in the process that are outside of the hiring manager? And then how do you get them to feel comfortable? I know you mentioned training, but let's unpack that a little bit in terms of like, what do you guys actually do?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. I think it's twofold. I mean, some people, because we're really flat, have interviewed in the past and say, "Ooh, I really like this. I want this to be a part of what I'm doing," which kind of speaks to the value here of being a polyglot with like a broad skill set of people who like doing those things. But actually, we do performance reviews twice a year. So we're also coming out of that too and meeting with folks and saying, "Hey, who are some people who are doing really well who might be able to take on some of this too?" And kind of take the load off of you all who have done interviews up until now. So are going through that on the management side a little bit too of, hey, who do we want to flag to do this? But then on the flip side, it's being really prescriptive about what good looks like. I used the analogy today with some folks internally of, hey, you're not going to connect like a user directly with a potential buyer of a product, right? And say, okay, you guys talk about Supabase and see how it goes. And I think it's the same with an interviewer, right? Like people might be internal at the company and know how we work, but not know kind of the broader picture and story of where we're building to, or could be so in the weeds that aren't thinking about some of the other cross-functional things they're looking for on other teams. So I think it's also getting really clear on the front end of here's your role in the process, here's what you're looking for. Because going back to that efficiency piece, it's also, you don't want everyone asking the same questions either. If you have a really tight interview process, which I think comes as you shift as a company too, from things being a bit more conversational to, okay, now we have to hire at scale. How
Yeah.
do we keep things really tight?
Yeah. And I love that, given you guys are a rather flat organization, I love that you're incorporating it into performance reviews and you're constantly talking about who can be brought into this process. Because I think, you even mentioned in the beginning, like when I started, I didn't even know maybe what my title was going to be. I think this is one of those areas it's really room for growth for somebody. Like it's not a new job, but it's a new responsibility as part of their job. And so if you can breed a culture in which people actually look at, hey, to be incorporated into the interview process as part of a panel or a committee to evaluate for X is a sign that the company values my perspective and is now going to coach me on how to become a better interviewer. That suits me well here or wherever I'm at, 5, 10 years down the road. So that's a really interesting thing that you guys are doing. I love it. How do people generally respond to that? Are people excited about joining the hiring process?
Yeah, so far they have been, which is good, which hopefully keeps up as we scale, as people get pulled in a whole bunch of different directions. But actually had somebody reach out today too and say, hey, I just had my first interview. What do you think of my feedback? Did it look good? What can I do better? So I think it's really interesting and goes back to that like continuous improvement piece here, which has been really cool to see, especially being in somebody who joined more recently of even on the interview side, people are asking for that feedback, which I think is really cool. And honestly, haven't seen a bunch. It's
Yeah.
usually, okay, here's my feedback, moving on. But I like
Totally. Yeah.
people
Normally you like
wanting
have to
that.
pry the feedback out of people. It's
Yeah.
like good candidate or the notes, right? So that's really exciting.